I was sitting in the back of a crowded auditorium on a Thursday in May when I realized 8 years of my life had been a transaction I never agreed to. She crossed that graduation stage with her head high, diploma clutched like a lottery ticket. And I stood up clapping harder than anyone else in that room. Every blister from construction sites, every dinner I'd skipped to pay her tuition, every vacation I'd canceled so she could focus on exams. It all felt worth it in that moment. I actually thought we'd made it. I waited by the car while she posed for pictures with classmates I'd seen maybe twice in 8 years. She was glowing, laughing, hugging people who'd never once asked about the husband funding their friend's education. When she finally walked over to me, I opened my arms expecting relief, gratitude, maybe even tears of joy. Instead, she handed me a manila envelope with the same expression you'd give a cashier returning your credit card. "What's this?" I asked, genuinely confused. "Divorce papers. I already signed my part." No tremor in her voice, no hesitation, just matter of fact, like she was confirming our dinner reservation. I stood there staring at the envelope, then at her face, searching for any sign this was some kind of stress-induced breakdown or bad joke. Nothing. Her eyes were calm, even relieved. "Are you serious right now?" "Dead serious. Look, I don't need you anymore. I have my degree, I have job offers lined up. I want to start fresh. You were helpful during school, but that chapter's over." Helpful. 8 years of marriage reduced to a word you'd use for a study app or a good pen. I felt something crack inside me, but it wasn't my heart breaking. It was clarity breaking through. So, what was I then? Some kind of scholarship fund? She actually shrugged. "You knew what you were signing up for. I was always clear about my priorities. Medical school came first. Now I'm a doctor and I deserve a fresh start. No dead weight." Dead weight. I watched her colleagues starting to gather nearby, probably wondering why the intense conversation was happening 10 feet from their celebration. Some of them recognized me. The guy who'd shown up to exactly 3 social events in 8 years because I was always working the shifts that paid overtime. The husband who existed in stories, but rarely in person. I opened the envelope and flipped through the pages. She'd already filled everything out. Asset division, car assignments, even marked the apartment as hers since she'd be making doctor money soon. I was getting the legal minimum and nothing more. She'd planned this down to the paragraph. "You've really thought this through." "I'm not stupid. I know what I want." I looked at her standing there in her graduation gown, at the diploma in her hand that I'd bled for, at the future she was so eager to start without me in it. Then I did something that clearly wasn't in her script. I pulled a pen from my jacket pocket and signed every single page right there in the parking lot without reading another word. When I handed the papers back, her mouth actually fell open. "There. Congratulations on your graduation. And your divorce." "Wait, that's it? You're not going to fight this?" Why would I fight for someone who just called me dead weight? I turned and walked away from the car. My car, the one I'd been making payments on for 3 years. And I didn't look back. Behind me, I heard one of her classmates ask, "Who was that guy? And why did he just leave his own car?" I kept walking. She wanted to start fresh with no dead weight. Perfect. She was about to find out exactly what I'd been carrying all these years. 3 days later, I was gone. Not just from the apartment, but from the entire state, like I'd never existed at all. While she was probably telling her new colleagues about her clean break and fresh start, I was systematically erasing myself from her life with the kind of precision she'd used to plan our divorce. The thing about being married to someone who never paid attention to anything except her own career was that she had no idea what I actually controlled. She thought she was getting the apartment because she'd marked it on the papers. What she didn't know was that I'd been paying rent from my personal account for 2 years. The lease had always been in my name only. I'd done it to protect her credit during school. Ironic. Those 3 days were the most productive of my life. I closed our joint accounts and moved my half to a bank she'd never heard of in a state she'd never visited. Canceled every utility that was in my name. Transferred my phone number to a new carrier. Even canceled the Netflix subscription she was probably planning to use that same night. I took everything I actually cared about. My grandmother's china she'd always complained about, my tools, my record collection she called clutter, and loaded it into my pickup truck before dawn on Saturday. Portland, Oregon. I picked it because I had zero connection to it. No friends, no family, no memories of us talking about visiting someday. Just a clean slate in a city where nobody would think to look for me and nobody cared about my story. The apartment I found was nothing special. 1 bedroom, 15 minutes from downtown. View of a parking lot instead of the city skyline she used to fantasize about. But it was mine. Completely, legally, financially mine. And it was quiet in a way our apartment never had been. No stressed out muttering about exams, no alarms going off at 4 a.m., no guilt trips about not understanding how hard medical school was. Landing a job took less than a week. Construction management for a mid-sized commercial firm. Good pay, reasonable hours, and nobody asking about my personal life. I started the following Monday like I'd lived in Portland my entire life. Meanwhile, back in our old city, reality was introducing itself to my ex-wife. The first sign came when she tried to pay rent and discovered the landlord doesn't accept "I'm going to be a doctor" as legal tender. When the electricity shut off 3 days later, followed by the internet, she finally started to understand that I hadn't been dead weight. I'd been the foundation. Her messages started during week 1. "We need to talk. This is ridiculous. You can't just disappear." I watched them appear on my screen and deleted each one without reading past the preview. If she had something important to say, she could route it through her lawyer. The calls started during week 2. 27 calls in a single day. I let everyone go to voicemail, then deleted the voicemails without listening. My life in Portland was too peaceful to contaminate with her panic. By week 3, she'd escalated to contacting my old co-workers. My former supervisor called to warn me that some frantic woman claiming to be my wife had shown up at the office demanding my contact information. I thanked him and told him I had no wife. He understood immediately. He'd been divorced twice himself. Month 2 brought the real desperation. She'd tried to use me as a reference for an apartment application and discovered my old number was disconnected. She contacted my sister, my parents, even my college roommate from a decade ago. Every single one of them got the same message from me. I don't know anyone by that name. They respected my boundaries. Some bridges, once burned, should stay ashes. The most desperate move came during month 3. She somehow tracked down my new employer and called the main office claiming there was a family emergency. My boss passed along the message with a raised eyebrow. I told him the truth. I had no family emergency because I had no family by that name. He quietly flagged her number in the company system and never mentioned it again. Good boss. What she didn't realize during all this searching was how much I was genuinely enjoying my new life. Portland suited me in ways our old city never had. The coffee was better. People minded their own business. And nobody expected me to sacrifice my present for someone else's future. I joined a weekend hiking group. started taking evening classes in advanced project management, even began dating again. Nothing serious at first, just remembering what it felt like to have conversations that didn't revolve around medical school stress and board exam anxiety. The woman I met at a bookstore coffee shop was everything my ex-wife wasn't. She had her own career as a graphic designer. She paid for her own meals. She actually asked about my day and seemed to care about the answer. When I mentioned I was recently divorced, she just nodded and said, "Good for you for knowing when to walk away." No interrogation, no suggestions for counseling, just acceptance that sometimes marriages end and moving forward is the healthiest thing you can do. By month 6, I'd stopped checking if my ex-wife had tried to contact me. I'd built a routine that had nothing to do with her schedule, her needs, or her mood swings. Wake up at 6, coffee while reading the news, work from 7 to 4, gym or hiking after, dinner with friends, or quiet evenings reading. Simple, peaceful, mine. The irony wasn't lost on me that while she was probably bragging to her colleagues about her fresh start as a newly single doctor, I was the one actually living fresh. No dead weight dragging me down. No one treating my contributions like temporary conveniences. She'd wanted to start over with a clean slate. I'd given her exactly that, plus something she hadn't expected. A completely empty space where I used to be. 3 years passed like that. 3 years of building something real, while she was apparently discovering that reality has a wicked sense of humor. I didn't learn this through stalking her social media or asking mutual friends. I learned it because a mutual acquaintance couldn't resist sharing the gossip when we randomly crossed paths at a conference. Turns out her fresh start hadn't gone according to the fantasy. Being a brand new doctor wasn't the instant wealth and prestige she'd imagined. Her resident salary was barely more than what I'd been making in construction, except now she had 6-figure student loan debt hanging over her head. Debt that used to be our problem when she needed my signature for consolidation loans. The apartment she'd claimed in the divorce became a financial nightmare within 6 months. Without my income covering rent, utilities, and groceries, she burned through her savings before her first paycheck cleared. She ended up taking on 2 roommates just to make rent. Sharing the space she'd been so excited to have all to herself. According to my source, those roommates were not impressed when they learned she'd divorced her husband the day after graduation, especially after they realized they were essentially subsidizing the lifestyle she'd planned to fund with money that wasn't materializing as quickly as expected. Her work schedule was brutal. 80-hour weeks, overnight shifts, being on call during weekends she'd imagined spending at brunches and wine bars. The glamorous social life she'd envisioned as a successful single doctor turned into catching 3-hour naps between shifts and surviving on hospital cafeteria food and energy drinks that cost more than the meals I used to cook for her. Meanwhile, I was thriving in ways I hadn't known were possible. The construction company promoted me to senior project manager. My salary increased significantly. I bought a small house with a yard, nothing fancy, but completely mine. No shared mortgage, no joint financial planning, no asking permission to buy new furniture or repaint a room. Just my space, decorated how I wanted, filled with things I actually liked. The hiking group had become family. Every weekend, rain or shine, we explored different trails around Oregon and Washington. I was in the best shape of my life, surrounded by people who valued my company instead of my bank account. And I felt genuinely content for the first time in a decade. The graphic designer had become something serious. We'd been together over a year, taking things slow and steady. She appreciated that I wasn't rushing, given my recent divorce. What she didn't know was how revolutionary it felt to be with someone who contributed equally to the relationship. She had her own house, her own car, her own retirement account. When we went to dinner, she insisted on splitting the bill. When I cooked at my place, she brought wine and dessert. When she cooked at hers, I handled cleanup and brought flowers. Everything felt balanced, reciprocal, adult. But back to my ex-wife's unraveling. The real breaking point apparently came during her second year of residency. She'd been working a particularly brutal rotation when her car broke down. Major engine failure that would cost more to fix than the car was worth. In the past, this would have been my problem to solve. I would have researched options, negotiated with mechanics, maybe borrowed money from family if necessary. Now she was facing it alone, with maxed out credit cards and zero savings. She took public transportation for 3 months before finally qualifying for a high-interest loan on a used car with payments that devoured what little financial breathing room she had left. The whole experience apparently triggered some kind of awakening about what she'd actually lost when she discarded her dead weight. That's when the real searching began. She tried social media first, but I deleted all my accounts and never created new ones under my real name. Then she worked through every mutual friend we'd had. But most had chosen sides after the divorce, and her side wasn't winning any popularity contests. People don't forget when you throw away a decent person for selfish reasons. She hired a private investigator after 2 years of failed searching, paid him a $1,000 retainer from money she absolutely couldn't afford to spend. He found old addresses, previous employers, tracked down family members who wouldn't tell him anything useful. Dead end after dead end. The breakthrough came when she abused her access to medical databases during her 3rd year of residency. She'd gotten the idea to search hospital employment records across multiple states, looking for my name connected to construction-related job descriptions. She figured I'd eventually need medical care somewhere, and if I'd kept the same type of work, she might find a trail. It was a desperate long shot that shouldn't have worked, but it did. A routine physical I'd gotten through my company's health insurance program created a record that appeared in her search. Hospital in Portland, Oregon. Employment listed with a major construction firm. After 3 years of searching, she'd finally found me. What she didn't know was that the man she was looking for didn't exist anymore. I wasn't the same person who'd worked double shifts to fund her dreams. I wasn't the guy who'd accepted being called helpful and deadweight. I'd become someone who understood his own value, someone who'd built an entirely new life without her in it, someone who'd proven her assessment had been catastrophically wrong. She was about to discover that when you throw away something valuable, you don't get to decide 3 years later that you want it back. The harassment started on a Tuesday morning in March. My phone showed 17 missed calls from an unknown number. Then the texts started flooding in. I know you're getting these messages. We need to talk about what happened. I made a mistake and I want to fix it. Please just call me back. I deleted each one without reading past the first line. After 3 years of complete silence, I had zero interest in whatever crisis had suddenly made her remember I existed. The calls continued for 2 weeks, escalating each day. Different numbers now, probably borrowed phones from colleagues. I blocked each one as soon as I identified the pattern. 17 calls Tuesday, 23 Wednesday, 31 Thursday. She was spiraling. Then she got creative. My work phone rang on a Friday afternoon while I was on site reviewing blueprints. The receptionist from our main office called, sounding confused. "Hey, there's a woman here claiming to be your wife. Says there's a family emergency and she needs to speak with you immediately." I had her describe the woman, my ex-wife, exactly. She'd somehow found my employer and driven to Portland. She was sitting in our lobby right now, probably spinning some dramatic story about urgent medical news or a dying relative. Tell her you couldn't reach me and that I'm out of state on a project for the next 2 weeks. Take her contact information and let her know someone will call her back. Got it. Should I actually call her back? No. An hour later, my supervisor called with an update. She'd waited in the lobby for 3 hours, asking repeatedly if I'd shown up at different job sites. When it became clear I wasn't coming, she'd left her number and a handwritten note about how we needed to discuss our future together. He asked if I wanted him to do anything else. I told him to flag her information in case she came back. He understood completely. Apparently, his office dealt with unstable ex-spouses periodically. She didn't return to the office, but she found other ways to make her presence known. She'd apparently spent the weekend driving around Portland, looking for my truck in apartment complexes and parking lots. One of my hiking friends called Sunday evening to warn me that a woman matching her description had approached him at a coffee shop, claiming she was looking for her estranged husband and showing a photo on her phone. Dude, I didn't tell her anything, but she seemed really determined. Said she'd been searching for 3 years. Thanks for the heads up. If she approaches you again, you've never heard of me. Copy that? Monday brought a new strategy. She'd decided to blanket the city with her search. Posted on neighborhood Facebook groups, Nextdoor apps, even Craigslist missed connections. All with the same desperate message about looking for her husband, who she'd lost touch with after her medical residency. Please help reconnect. My girlfriend showed me one of the posts Tuesday evening. We were cooking dinner at my place when she pulled up Facebook on her phone. This is weird. Some woman is posting in all the Portland groups looking for her husband. She's using a photo that looks ancient, and the whole thing sounds unhinged. I looked at the post. It was a photo of me from our marriage, probably taken at some restaurant dinner I'd forgotten existed. The caption read like a missed connection ad, full of regret and vague promises to make things right. Sounds like someone who doesn't understand that some bridges can't be rebuilt once they're burned. My girlfriend scrolled through the comments. People are being brutal. Most are saying that if her husband wanted to be found, he wouldn't have disappeared so thoroughly. She was right. The comment section was a chorus of strangers pointing out the obvious. Men don't vanish this completely unless they have very good reasons. Several women shared their own stories about ex-husbands who'd gone no contact, and the consensus was clear. This level of avoidance meant serious damage had been done. Wednesday brought the most desperate move yet. She got my address. I came home from work to find her car parked outside my house. She'd been there since noon, according to Mrs. Chen from across the street, who flagged me down as I pulled into my driveway. That woman has been parked there for hours, asking everyone who walks by if they know you. I told her I'd never seen you before in my life. Thanks. If she approaches you again, please feel free to call the police about suspicious behavior. I parked in my garage and entered through the side door, avoiding any contact. She knew I was home now. The doorbell started ringing around 7. Continuous, aggressive rings that went on for 2 minutes at a time, then pounding, then more ringing. I ignored it all, continuing my normal evening routine. Around 9, she started yelling through the door. "I know you're in there. I saw your truck. We need to talk about this like adults. I drove 16 hours to get here. I'm not leaving until you at least listen to me." Porch lights were coming on up and down the street. I called the police non-emergency line and calmly reported someone trespassing and disturbing the peace. The officer who arrived 20 minutes later was professional. I watched through the window as he spoke with her for about 10 minutes. She was animated, gesturing toward my house, probably explaining her desperate 3-year search. He knocked on my door. "Sir, the woman claims to be your ex-wife and says she needs to discuss important matters with you." Are you willing to speak with her? No. We've been divorced for 3 years, and I have no interest in any communication. I'd like her removed from my property. Understood. I watched him walk back and have another conversation with her. This one was clearly more firm because she got in her car and drove away without looking back. My phone buzzed 5 minutes later. Unknown number. The police can't stop me from loving you. I'll wait as long as it takes. I screenshot the message and started a file. If this escalated further, I wanted documentation. She cornered me at Home Depot on Saturday afternoon. I was loading lumber into my truck for a deck project when I heard her voice behind me. Please don't walk away. Just give me 5 minutes. I turned around. She was standing 10 feet away, looking like she hadn't slept in days. Thinner than I remembered, dark circles under her eyes. That frantic energy of someone running on pure desperation and caffeine. 5 minutes for what? To apologize, to explain, to ask for another chance. I closed the tailgate and faced her completely. You had 8 years of chances. You used them all in a parking lot 3 years ago. I was stressed. Medical school was overwhelming. I said things I didn't mean. I've regretted it every single day since. Which part do you regret? Calling me dead weight or discovering that the dead weight was actually keeping your life afloat? She flinched. I never should have said those things. I was scared about starting my career and thought I needed to be completely independent to prove I could make it. How's that working out for you? Her jaw tightened. It's been harder than I expected. The hours, the money, everything. I realize now that I gave up the best thing in my life for a career that isn't what I thought it would be. I leaned against my truck and crossed my arms. So let me understand this. When you thought you were going to be wealthy and successful, you threw me away like garbage. Now that reality hit and you're struggling, suddenly I'm the best thing that ever happened to you. That's not how it was. That's exactly how it was. You said it yourself. You didn't need me anymore. I was helpful during school, but that chapter was over. Remember? She looked at the ground. I was wrong. Yes, you were wrong about a lot of things. I know I hurt you, but we can fix this. We had something good before medical school took over. We can have that again. I almost laughed. We never had anything good. I had 8 years of being your personal support system while you chased your dream. You had 8 years of free financial and emotional labor. Those are 2 completely different relationships. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? Let me tell you what's been fair. You got exactly what you asked for. A fresh start with no dead weight. I got exactly what I deserved after 8 years of being taken for granted. A life where I'm actually valued. I value you. I always valued you. You valued what I provided. There's a difference. She stepped closer, tears forming in her eyes. I love you. I've always loved you. I just got confused about priorities. No, you didn't get confused. You got honest. For the first time in 8 years, you told me exactly what you thought of me and our marriage. The only thing that's changed is your circumstances. People change. I've changed. Have you? Or are you just desperate because being an adult is harder than you expected? Silence. Then she tried a different approach. What can I do to prove I'm different now? Nothing, because I'm different now too. What do you mean? I mean, I'm not the same man you discarded 3 years ago. That guy who worked double shifts to pay your bills? He's gone. The guy who accepted being called dead weight and helpful? He doesn't exist anymore. You're talking to someone completely different. I don't believe that. People don't just become different people. Sure they do, especially when they're forced to rebuild their entire life from scratch. Want to know what I learned in the past 3 years? She nodded, desperate for any opening. I learned that I'm actually pretty good company when I'm not constantly worried about someone else's stress levels. I learned that I have interests and hobbies that don't revolve around medical school schedules. I learned what it feels like to have conversations that don't end with complaints about professors or rotations or board exams. Her face was getting redder with each point. I learned that when you date someone who has their own career and their own money, relationships become partnerships instead of charity cases. I learned that mutual respect is actually possible when both people contribute equally. You're dating someone? I'm engaged to someone. The words hit her like a physical blow. She actually stepped backward, hand to her chest. Engaged, 3 months ago. We're getting married in September. But we're still married. No, we're not. You divorced me, remember? Signed papers and everything. Very efficiently handled, actually. I mean, we could still... If you wanted to try again. I don't want to try again. I want to continue moving forward with someone who chose me when she had options, not someone who only wants me back because her other options didn't work out. She was crying openly now. This isn't how this was supposed to go. How was it supposed to go? You show up after 3 years, apologize for treating me like garbage, and I'm supposed to gratefully accept you back into my life? Yes, I don't know. I just thought if I could find you and explain. You thought I'd be sitting around waiting for you to realize your mistake, like I was just on pause until you decided you needed me again. She didn't answer, but her expression confirmed exactly what she'd been thinking. Here's the thing you never understood about me. I don't wait around for people to figure out my value. When you threw me away, I took you at your word and moved on completely. The man you're looking for remarried someone who appreciates him from day one. I could appreciate you now. Too late. Someone else already does. I opened my truck door and got in. She stood there watching me, probably hoping I'd change my mind or offer some kind of hope. Instead, I rolled down the window and gave her one final piece of advice. Next time you find something valuable, try not to throw it away just because you think you found something better. Most people only get one chance to make that mistake. I drove away, leaving her standing in the parking lot with the same shocked expression she'd had 3 years ago when I signed those divorce papers without argument. The difference was, this time she understood exactly what she'd lost. 2 weeks after the Home Depot encounter, she made one final desperate move. Showed up at my workplace again with a different story. Told our receptionist she was a doctor with urgent medical information about my health that required immediate discussion. My supervisor called me into his office. Your ex is back. This time she's claiming medical emergency. Should I call security? Actually, let me handle this one personally. I walked to the lobby where she was waiting in scrubs from what was probably a night shift. She looked even worse than before, like she'd been surviving on nothing but coffee and denial. Medical emergency? I asked. I needed to see you. And you thought impersonating a doctor with urgent health information was the appropriate way to do that? I am a doctor. You're also a liar. There's no medical emergency, is there? She shook her head, tears starting again. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to give you 2 things, and then this ends forever. I pulled an envelope from my jacket pocket. First, this is a restraining order. Any further contact from you, direct or indirect, becomes a legal matter. That includes showing up at my work, my home, contacting my friends, or creating fake emergencies. Her hands shook as she took the envelope. Second, this is for you. I handed her a wedding invitation. My name and my fiancé's name printed in elegant script, along with the September date and Portland venue information. I want you to understand that I'm not just moving on from you. I've already moved on completely. The life I'm building has nothing to do with the life we had together. She stared at the invitation like it might disappear if she blinked. My fiancée knows about you. She knows about our marriage, the divorce, your recent attempts to reconnect. She's not threatened by you because she understands something you never did. What's that? That when someone chooses you every day, instead of just keeping you around until something better comes along, it creates a completely different kind of relationship. Security had arrived, probably called by the receptionist when she realized what was happening. These gentlemen are going to escort you to your car. If I see you again, if I hear from you again, if you contact anyone in my life again, the next conversation will be with my lawyer and the police. She was crying harder now, clutching the restraining order and wedding invitation. I know I made mistakes, but this feels cruel. Cruel would be leading you on, letting you think there was hope, or pretending that 3 years of rebuilding my life could be erased with an apology. This is honest. I love you. I know you think you do, but love isn't something you discover when you're desperate. Love is what you nurture when you have choices. Security stepped forward and she let them guide her toward the exit. At the door, she turned back one last time. Will you ever forgive me? I already have. That's why I was able to move on completely. She left, and I never saw her again. 6 months later, I married my fiancée in a small ceremony, surrounded by people who'd watched me build a new life from nothing. During my vows, I promised to choose her every day, not just when it was convenient. She promised the same thing back. No exceptions, no conditions, just partnership. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's living so well that the people who discarded you realize they gave away something irreplaceable. My ex-wife wanted a fresh start with no dead weight. I gave her exactly that and built something better than anything we'd ever had together. She got what she asked for. I got what I deserved. We were both finally free. Our story has come to an end. If you've made it this far, how about subscribing to our channel? It helps us immensely. I've selected 2 other videos for you that I'm sure you'll enjoy. Feel free to click on them. I'll be waiting for you in the next story. See you soon.